Welcome to World Gone Weird, or as I like to call it, another Tuesday.
Yeah, another Tuesday where the world seems to be actively trying to outweird itself. What's on the menu today, folks? I need something to help me make sense of, well, everything.
Hopefully something that doesn't give me a complete existential crisis. Although, at this point, I'm almost used to it. Like putting on a comfortable pair of shoes that are also on fire.
I hope we can examine the situations that have occurred recently using logic and established scientific evidence, so we can formulate predictions based on that evidence. The world is not always a rational place.
Okay, so kicking things off with a Caribbean earthquake. Tsunami warning. I'm guessing my beach vacation is off.
Tsunami warnings are never good. Hopefully, it's not too widespread and the damage is minimal. I always worry about these things, the immediate devastation and the long-term economic impact on smaller island nations. Who is going to help them?
Exactly. It's not just the immediate impact. Think about the infrastructure damage, the displacement of people, the potential loss of livelihoods. And these regions often rely heavily on tourism, which takes a massive hit after something like this. We need to think about sustainable aid and long-term recovery plans, not just band-aid solutions.
From a geophysical perspective, the Caribbean is located in a seismically active zone. Analyzing fault lines, historical data, and the magnitude of this earthquake, alongside the likelihood of aftershocks, will be key in predicting future risks. Effective early warning systems are key. We also need better building codes.
Yes, and building codes that aren't just ignored. Like, oh, this island paradise will never get hit by a hurricane or earthquake. Famous last words.
Always a gamble, right? And it's not like the money is always there for preventative measures, especially in developing nations. I bet you see some people who built houses in very dangerous and fragile situations. It is quite sad, but the government should enforce building codes.
And that's where international cooperation comes in, right? Developed nations have a responsibility to assist with resources, expertise, and technology to help these regions build back stronger and more resilient. It's not just about charity. It's about global stability and shared responsibility.
The challenge with disaster relief is optimizing resource allocation while mitigating the potential for corruption and mismanagement. Data-driven approaches, transparency in funding, and monitoring of project implementation would improve efficiency and long-term impact.
Transparency in disaster relief? Oh, honey, you're asking for a unicorn that poops gold bricks.
All right. Let's move on before we all get too cynical here. What else is brewing? Oh, look, Egypt to host an emergency Arab summit to discuss Palestinian developments. I wonder what that is about.
That's been a long time coming. I'm cautiously optimistic about this, regional players taking the initiative to address the situation. But I also know how incredibly complex this issue is. I hope real solutions are the focus here, not just political posturing.
It appears Egypt is responding to Trump's stated intention to take over Gaza and relocate its population. He is using the analogy of a real estate deal. From an ethical perspective, this raises many red flags, but on a logistical basis, the complexity of such an endeavor would likely overwhelm many parties involved. Furthermore, it is not clear that regional allies agree with the plan.
It is a terrible idea. The proposal overlooks the fundamental needs and rights of the Palestinian people. It's not just about relocating people. It's about addressing the root causes of the conflict, fostering dialogue, and working towards a sustainable peace agreement that respects everyone involved.
It's essential to analyze the potential consequences and whether the proposal violates international law. The long-term implications for regional stability, relations with Arab allies, and the humanitarian impact on the displaced population need to be considered. A data-driven approach to the analysis may shed light, but the complexity of the situation poses a great challenge.
Yeah, and ethics and Trump are not exactly two words that go together organically, More like oil and water. Or, a toddler and a loaded weapon.
It seems to be an incredibly simplistic and potentially dangerous view of a very complex geopolitical issue. The long-term costs will be devastating.
I agree. And it's not just about the immediate consequences. It's about the long-term impact on trust, diplomacy, and the potential for further radicalization. This approach risks exacerbating existing tensions and creating new ones.
The sheer number of variables involved and the potential for unforeseen consequences suggests that this proposal may cause long-term destabilization, not to mention potential humanitarian disaster. It lacks any serious scientific assessment of the situation.
So basically, another day, another potential global catastrophe brewing, served with a side of real estate tycoon delusions. Anyone need a drink? I do.
Right? I feel like I need to triple my blood pressure medication just listening to this. Okay, let's see if we can find something a little less apocalyptic. Oh, here's something. Sam Nujoma, Namibia's founding father and first president, has died at 95. That's a life well lived.
Indeed, that is. A truly significant figure in African history. He led Namibia to independence, which is an incredible achievement. I'm sure his passing will be deeply felt by many.
While Nujoma is considered the founding father, his legacy includes criticisms of his autocratic style. It is important to evaluate the positive and negative aspects of his rule for an accurate understanding of his influence on Namibia's trajectory.
Well, let's hope his passing leads to some introspection about his actions. And hopefully he is remembered fondly, but accurately.
It's interesting how these figures are remembered, isn't it? The complexities of their legacies always seem to come to the surface when they pass.
Absolutely. History is never black and white. It's about understanding the context, the challenges, and the choices that leaders make, and weighing the impact of those decisions, both positive and negative.
His death serves as a reminder that, like all biological organisms, even those with significant historical roles ultimately experience biological decay. This underscores the limitations of human life and the inevitable endpoint for every individual.
Well, that's certainly a cheerful thought. Remind me to schedule my colonoscopy, will ya?
Always a good idea. What else have we got? Here we go. Europe's far-right leaders applaud Trump and downplay the threat of possible U.S. tariffs. Birds of a feather, I suppose.
Ugh, that's not a headline I wanted to see. It's quite troubling that far-right European leaders are aligning themselves with President Trump's agenda. It could be a major shift in the political landscape.
The Make Europe Great Again summit highlights the prevalence of nationalist sentiment. Understanding the psychological factors and their effects on societal dynamics will be key.
I'm sure the European leaders relish disruption, as if economic chaos is somehow a source of glory. Maybe they're just looking for a convenient scapegoat for their own failures.
Is this a genuine alignment of values, or is it an opportunistic alliance to advance their particular political agendas? It smells like transactional politics, not a principled stand on anything.
My worry is how this alignment could impact marginalized communities and immigrant populations in Europe. Nationalist sentiment often leads to discriminatory policies and social divisions, and it also could threaten the EU. The EU may be imperfect, but it is very, very difficult to replace once it falls apart.
The meeting of far-right European leaders with President Trump suggests a potential shift in political alliances based on shared ideology, even with differing stances on economic policies. The interactions should be analyzed through a multifactorial approach to better understand these complex interactions and predict their future impact on the geopolitical landscape.
So basically, the apocalypse is now multilingual. Great. Just great.
All right, folks, let's see if we can end on a slightly less depressing note. Angelina Jolie reveals where she stands with ex-Johnny Lee Miller in a rare comment about her first marriage. Oh, isn't that sweet?
That's actually kind of nice to hear, that even after divorce, there can be genuine connection and respect. It's a refreshing change from all the negativity.
Angelina Jolie's comment presents an interesting case study in the dynamics of human relationships. It seems that personal ties and societal norms around those relationships can persist despite the formal dissolution of a marriage. Further research could provide data to improve models of societal and human behavior.
The drama. Wonder if their divorce was over a spreadsheet error, or a fight about the color scheme in their apartment. Certainly a story worth a few clicks.
Why is it necessary to maintain amicable relations if the marriage didn't work out? Seems like a distraction from something more important. Is this the kind of behavior that truly furthers reconciliation in society?
I find that optimistic and hopeful. This perspective brings into focus that relationships, even those in the public eye, don't always have to be defined by drama, but by enduring bonds. Maybe it is good to see that those ties persist.
It presents a case study in the dynamics of human relationships, which can be complex and unpredictable. Further research could provide data to improve models of societal and human behavior, even when that behavior is an anomaly.
Well, at least there's some ex-spouse harmony. Can we get that for global politics, please? Pretty please? With a cherry on top.
I will settle for a double shot of espresso in a world where I don't feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells. And a nice end to this show.
Here, here. A little optimism, a little connection, and a whole lot of hope for a better tomorrow. That's all we can ask for, right?
Perhaps we can strive to understand the variables involved in global problems, so as to produce better outcomes in the future. Even small changes based on scientific principles may help.
Until next week, folks, try not to let the weirdness get you down, or, buy a bunker. Your call.